Alright guys, so in this part of the tuning, in this part of the video series, I'm going to take you through tuning your 5-channel amplifier. Now, before I do, just a quick overview. I want to make sure that you remember that all your connections are really nice and tight. Obviously don't break anything, but they need to be nice and snug. My positive, make sure your negative is grounded properly. And then here, we want to make sure that we've only got the blue connectors plugged into the amplifier. At this point, we don't have any of the output connected. Here you can see, I think you can see this, let me look, yeah. This right here is the wiring going to my subwoofer, or yeah, it's my subwoofer. And then over here, just a quick side note down here, I think I can see this. In this particular case, we will not be using this third connector with the purple wires only. So you want to make sure you connect the white and the gray into the front, the purple and the green into the rear. We want to make sure this is connected here, and at this point there's nothing plugged into these outputs here. We'll go over that in just a second. Okay, so at this point your truck is running. We're running off the alternator to make sure we're getting the max power from the charging system. All right, so let me go over a quick checklist of all the things you're going to need to get this tuning process done pretty quickly and easily. You want to download these test tones from our website. The most common problem we usually get or encounter with people tuning their amplifiers is they burn the test tones out of order. So if you downloaded these from the website for free, just make sure that you, that you burn them in the proper order. Number one is going to be our 1 kilohertz test tone. The TXD line are all the same, so this is going to be the same tuning process for the 3204 and the TXD8000. Then here we've got the 80 hertz crossover. And then we're going to be using the 50 hertz for the TXD600, 1000, and of course the 800. Now these other two test tones, if you're going to be using a recurve, we'll cover that in a second or another video. But this is for our starter system, or basically if you're just using this 5-channel. And this tuning process will work for most vehicles. You just want to be sure that you download the correct test tones. And on the website we'll have a link for your particular vehicle. Alright, so as I mentioned earlier, make sure you've got your CD. You're going to want a digital multimeter. You don't need a super expensive one, but you do need a decent unit, say about $15 to $20. You might want to pick one up at Northern or at Home Depot. Don't get any of the $5 units. They're generally off by as much as a full half of a volt, and that's really important when you're tuning. So make sure you get something 15 to 20 bucks. You can probably get it on Amazon as well. In addition to the digital multimeter, you're going to need a small screwdriver. Usually we include these with our amps. Every now and then we run out, so if not, just make sure you've got a nice small flathead screwdriver. Alright, so in your amplifier box you got these pigtails. And these pigtails are very similar to your plug-and-play harness on your particular vehicle. Everything's color-coded exactly the same. The white and gray is the front. The black, the green and the purple are the rear. Now, the black plug, in our case, we set these up as the output. So I'm going to go ahead and plug these into here, and I'll show you that in just a second, into the output. I'm going to be using these alligator clips to make my life easier. A lot of the digital multimeters that you get for 15 or 20 bucks are going to have a probe, and you're going to have to hold those in place. So what we're going to do with these is here on my amplifier, I hope you can see this pretty clearly. Here we have the front and the rear. The front, again, is the gray and the white. So we're going to plug these into this amplifier. The rear, we'll plug it into this amplifier. Alright, so here you can see I plugged in my front and rear, and obviously this is for the tuning process only. When we're done with this process, we'll go ahead and plug in the actual harness that the plug-and-play harness that runs back to your stock speakers, or to your new speakers. Alright, so let me make sure nothing's touching, because if these touch together, you're going to end up popping a fuse, so just try to be careful. I'm just going to kind of wing it for this video. Pop the CD into your stereo/head unit. During the entire tuning process, we're going to turn the head unit up and leave it at 50 during the entire process. Alright, now next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to push the repeat button, because I want this test tone to play over and over. Just make sure it's the 1 kilohertz TXD8004. So for now, I'm going to turn this down while I finish explaining some stuff. You want to try and tune this quickly, because these test tones put a lot of stress on your amp, and obviously we want to try and minimize that. Alright, so the next step you need to do is when you pop the CD in, you may have to hit the audio button. It'll take you to this screen. You're going to click sound. And notice this is really common. This is super important. So I'm going to pause here, and I'm going to sound like a broken record. I might say it 2 or 3 times. we need to be sure this is all set flat. So I'm going to hit go back, back, back. I need to make sure these are all flat. My front and rear need to be set flat. Now, equally important, I want you to pay attention here. You are not going to be messing with these settings from this point forward. The reason is if you boost this, it's going to introduce synthetic boost into the amp. It's going to cause distortion and potentially cause you to blow speakers or sub or whatever. From this point forward, you're not going to be messing with these settings. You can go backwards, but you can't go forward. All right. Now let me go over the last part of the checklist. So here I have another amplifier. All right, so all these knobs, every single one of them, make sure they're all turned down and to the left, as far left as they'll go. Now, there's one of these knobs, which is this one right here, is the LPF. We're going to take this one and turn it all the way up and to the right as far as it'll go. Then we want to make sure we set this switch to 5-channel. You want to take your subwoofer control knob and cable. So you're going to take your subwoofer control knob, plug it into your amplifier here, and then you want to make sure the knob is turned all the way up to the max position. So I'm going to go ahead and plug this one in here. Now make sure my volume is turned all the way up, and I'll move that out of the way. Alright, so here I went ahead and connected my red to my left positive, the black to the left negative, multimeter to the V with the squiggly line, and that's for your alternating current. I'm getting a little bit of dancing there. Now watch, I'm going to go ahead and turn this up, and we're going to go to 50. Alright, so I turned the volume up to 50 here, and here you can see I'm at 10.85 volts. Don't expect this to be the same. You're only after the final number that we're going to get to in just a second. Now, again, I'm listening to the 1 kilohertz test tone. I've got my multimeter plugged in. I'm set on the alternating current. Now, my next step here is I'm going to take this knob here, which is my sensitivity knob, and I'm going to turn it up and to the right until this number says, oops, yeah. I'm going to turn it up and to the right until this number says 17.5. Alright, so for the purpose of this video, I got as close as I could, 17.55, excuse me. Now, you can get as close as you'd like. A little bit over is not a huge issue. Alright, so my next step, I'm going to switch to my 80 hertz crossover. You need to be really sure you're on the correct test tone, as we mentioned earlier. Your voltage is going to change. Now, my next steps, I'm going to take my phone, how to tune TXD8005. Alright, so on our website, you're going to scroll up on this page until you get to the high pass filter calculator right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this number here, which is 8.75, and it's going to give us our target voltage of 6.18. So in this particular step, I'm going to go here to my high pass filter. I'm going to take this knob and start turning it up and to the right until this number gets to 6.18. Alright, and here you can see I got pretty close, right on the money. You might get a little bit of variance, but get as close as you possibly can. And you may not get it precise, just get as close as you possibly can. Okay, so we're done. We've set the output on the front, and we've set the crossover on the front. So now I'm going to take my two connections here, move them to the left output on the rear, which here is my purple wires. Alright, so here you can see it says left negative. It has a black line. I'm going to connect my black there. Then my red positive. The red is going to go to the left positive. Alright. Now before I forget, I need to switch my test tone back to the number 1 or the 1 kilohertz test tone. 1 kHz TXD8005. Notice here I've got some output voltage. So my next step now is I'm going to take and we're going to go here to the rear. Right here it says sensitivity. We're going to take this and start turning this up and to the right until we get to 15.5. Alright, so for the purpose of the video, I got as close as I could. Obviously, you want to get closer if you can. Now, side note, it's very, very important that you set the voltage properly. If you set the voltage too high, you're going to start introducing distortion into your system. It's going to damage your speakers and or your sub. So you need to follow these numbers really closely. Alright, so my next step is we're going to set our crossover. So I'm going to come here, switch this to test tone number 2 in this case, the 80 hertz crossover. And again, going back to my high pass filter, I'm going to backspace 7.76. My new target voltage is 5.48. So I'm going to take this knob here, which is my high pass filter. Hope you can see that in the video. We're going to turn this up and to the right until we get to 5.48. Alright, so here you see I've got 5.481. It's bouncing a little bit, so that's really close on the money. Alright, so we're done with the front and the rear. Now I'm going to move over to the subwoofer output. Alright, so here you can see I've got the positive and negative hooked up to the subwoofer output. Now I need to switch my test tone over to the 50 Hertz test tone. Here it says TXD8005 through 1000. I'm still at 50 on my volume. We're going to take this knob here, the sensitivity knob, start turning it up and to the right until we hit our target voltage of 31 volts. Now, side note, I already said this, but make sure you've got your subwoofer cable plugged in and the subwoofer knob. I'm sorry, let me start over. Before you start this part of the tuning process, you want to be sure that you've got the subwoofer cable and subwoofer knob plugged in and turned to the max position as we stated earlier. So now I'm going to start turning this knob up and to the right until I see 31 volts there. Alright, so for the purpose of the video I got as close as I could, but now I need to set the crossover, so I'm going to go back to this test tone here, to the 80 Hertz test tone. Notice this number changes. Alright, now back on the same page we used for the high pass filter, we're going to scroll up, and there's another one, it's the low pass filter. So here I'm going to punch in 24.10, and it tells me my target voltage is 13.91. Alright, so in this next step, this knob here, which is my low pass filter, I'm going to start turning this down and to the left until this says 13.91. Alright. For the purpose of the video, I got as close as I could. Obviously, I want you to get closer. I want you to get to as close as you can to 13.91. You may not get precise, just get as close as you can. Alright, so at this point, I'm done with the tuning process. I can turn this down, but I want to go over a couple of really important things here. Alright, as I mentioned earlier, from now on, you're not going to mess with any of these settings. They need to stay flat. Also, now your max volume is going to be 50. Oops, your max volume on the head unit is going to be 50. Now, a really common issue with some of this with the Toyota stereos are some of the signals are louder than others, and what I mean is XM in a lot of cases, which this one doesn't have. XM is a lower output. FM is lower. So CD and Bluetooth are generally louder. So we want to be sure when you're listening to Bluetooth or when you're listening to CD that your max volume is 50. Now, in some cases with XM radio, you can go up to 52 or 54 because the signal coming from XM and FM is a much lower signal, so you can actually turn the volume up a little bit louder. But remember, your max volume now is 50 for Bluetooth and CD. It's very important. You don't want to damage anything. So what we're doing now is the head unit is providing the cleanest signal that it can. The amps are tuned to match up specifically to your head unit, and if you follow this tuning video, it works for just about every single system that we've got. The only clarification or the only difference is make sure that you download the correct test tones for your particular vehicle, and you can follow the same instructional series for all of the vast majority of our vehicles. Now, if you have a JBL equipped Tundra or Tacoma 4Runner, a couple things change a little bit, and we'll give you some instructions on how to make those work as well.